On today's podcast, we have Natasha on. Natasha is a psychologist. She does a lot of work around mental health, which made me so excited to do this podcast as well. I highly suggest to check out her Instagram page. She posts awesome stuff, different ways of thinking about mental health, and I guess some of the stuff that I just recently come across and from going through her page and that, which we discuss a lot of this in today's podcast and all that. So I highly suggest to go check out all her Instagram socials, which we'll link all down below and that. And then, we'll jump into today's podcast. Awesome. Welcome to the show. How's your day going?
Good. And thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited about this. My day's been pretty good. Not doing much. So pretty cruisy up until now. So
Yeah, awesome. That's good to hear. I think I normally start the podcast off with, going through, what you're about, how you came into the kind of field that you're doing, because you do psychology and a lot of stuff around mental health. So, I guess give us a bit of a background on how that kind of started out for you, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, definitely. So I think my kind of psychology, mental health journey started a really long time ago. And I think it just came through my own mental health struggles, where I was kind of searching for help and kind of trying to find a reason as to why I was feeling like anxious or depressed or whatever it may be. And I sought a lot of help from psychologists. I sought a lot of help from like coaches as well that I've worked with. And I think that's kind of what made me really want to help other people. And it's kind of the only thing that I've really felt aligned to is helping other people in terms of their mental health struggles. And I really love talking about it as well, which is why I started my Instagram as well, trying to share as much information as I can. And I think the main reason, I guess, why I also started was because, like I said, I was in a lot of pain and I was trying to find an answer. And I think that through what I'm doing now, I'm trying to help people find that information easier, because I think all this information should be free to everyone to access. And, there's so many things that we're not aware of, that I wasn't even aware of, that have helped me so much. So I think that my kind of, desire is to help people, know that there is help out there, and it's not just a conventional, it could be a psychologist, it could be a coach, it could be whatever it is, but there's so many different avenues. And knowing that you're not alone, that all of us feel these emotions at one point in our life. And just kind of like helping people, because I think, you can live the life that you want. You don't have to stay the way you are, which I think is something that a lot of people strive to try and find.
Yeah, definitely resonate with that as well. And it's crazy how much information there is out there and how it can, sometimes get muddled up as well. And I definitely agree with what you're saying, is a lot of this information should be, shared for free, because it's this is something I've been reflecting on, especially because I work in a barbershop in Nambour, which is a bit of a lower economic area, and everyone kind of, gives those people a bit more of a harder time. And it's there's a quote, think it's what Jay said, he was talking about it. It's you can't be what you can't see. And because a lot of these people don't see what it's like on the other side, and this is what the best thing with the internet is that you can actually, you don't have to see what's going on in the community. You can if you want to expand out, you can see what other people are doing and learning different things outwardly.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to, be representative of that. So people, like you said, so people can see that and go, oh, there is another way. And I think that's really, really important.
It definitely is, because I guess that we don't obviously see that as well, and that there is another way, especially inside our own communities.
Exactly. Definitely.
But I guess we'll touch base on this. If someone's kind of starting on their, journey, what kind of tools or advice do you give around that?
I think depends on where they are at in their journey. If they're very fresh and they're kind of not really knowing where to start, I always advise to go see a psychologist. I think that's really important. For me, it's really helped me. I know psychologists are a bit, some people it works for, some people it doesn't, and that's understandable. But I think it's really important to start off with that point, because a psychologist can really help you to firstly unravel what's going on if you don't know what's going on. And it's just a good controlled way for you to find out what is going on and to find a productive solution. And also just with me, at least, like I've worked with coaches as well, like life coaches, which has really helped me. And I think it's about finding that information is really important. And also like talking to your friends about it, confiding in someone that you trust about you're struggling, and, maybe asking them if they can help you find these resources as well. That's really important. But I guess, yeah, if you're having these issues, like for me, at least from my perspective, when I first started struggling, I went and saw a psychologist, and that was probably the scariest thing that I'd ever done, because it was so terrifying to go to a GP and just say, it was so strange to be like, I'm having anxiety or whatever it may have been, and I need to see someone. And luckily for me, I hit it off with my psychologist, and, we have a great relationship, and I see them like on and off. Like I haven't seen them for like, say, a year now, but I might see them again, in the future. So it's very like inconsistent. But yeah, for me, I just kind of went into it because I was like, this is what I need to do. So definitely I would say first point of call is, because we have this great thing now that we can get 12 sessions. I think it's 12 or 24. I'm not really sure. I think it's 12 sessions, bulk building. So you can go see a psychologist and see if it works for you, and see if that's, aligned to you. And also shop around. That's what I always say as well. Just because you get one psychologist doesn't mean it's going to be the right relationship. So shop around and see how you go. But I would definitely say that would be the first point of calls. Go see a GP, get a mental health check, and do that first, because it's almost like a process of elimination. You want to see like what it is that's going on. If it doesn't work, you go on to the next thing. And like I said, there are so many resources out there. There's coaches, there's psychologists, there's even just like going to like sporting things, who are part of a sport, or if you're like whatever it may be, like there are so many different avenues. There's so many different ways to treat mental health these days. Just finding what works for you is really important. But taking that first step to, getting that help for yourself is really important. And the first step is always the hardest. After that, it's easy. So as long as you take that first step, everything else will be smooth sailing. At least I believe so, at least.
Yeah, it does get a lot smoother, because it's after you knock that first hurdle down, it kind of just snowballs effect and that. And yeah, I definitely relate with that too, because it's like when I first saw my first psychologist as well, like it was a number of years of that I spoke about it. I was like, I'm going to go do it, didn't end up doing it. And then I can't remember, I think it was just one weekend after I had, I guess, been out for the whole weekend, gone out clubbing, all the rest of it. And I just said, yeah, I think I've had enough of being sick and tired. So then I'm like, okay, I'll book into the GP, see what I can actually do. And then started ticking off the list. And probably one of the biggest things I got from a psychologist was how to breathe. Like the most simplest thing that I guess none of us actually get taught, and how to like calm the nervous system from breathing. Because I have had a lot of trouble sleeping or getting asleep. And he goes, if you try this technique, it'll kind of work. Then I'm like, I think it was quite young. I think it was 18 at the time. I was like, yeah, whatever. Then I actually tried it first couple of times and it worked. And now it's just like, it's the thing I do most nights to get to sleep, and it just drops straight in.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's so good. Yeah. But I think that's so important. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you. And I guess because we both kind of work in this mental health world, that, there's still like a stigma associated with going to see a psychologist. So what I try and do is like, I talk about seeing a psychologist very casually. Like I'll tell my friends, oh yeah, I saw my psychologist, I saw my therapist. And I try to make it more of a casual thing, because I think it should be the same thing as going to see a doctor for just for a physical checkup. I think you can get so many great tools, like you said, for yourself, for your sleep. You've got such a great tool that it's helped you now. There are so many different things. And I think it's so important to normalize that, and the thing is also, you don't have to have, I think people think you have to have something very severe, or you have to have like a significant mental illness to go see a psychologist, and you don't. You just go to help you with your mental health. It's so important. And there shouldn't be that stigma, which I still think there is a stigma, unfortunately, but it really shouldn't be there, because it is, we live in a world where mental health is so prominent now that it shouldn't be, out of the ordinary to go see a psychologist.
Yeah, it's touch base on like the mental health thing. Like I think it was through COVID, mental health went up 70% or something along the lines of that. It's like a phenomenal number. It's like, I think it'd be like number one or number two, like, of the health problems we have going on in Western culture as well. And like with seeing a psychologist there's a huge stigma around it as well. It's like, I was talking to a client today, like in the barbershop and that, and we're talking about mental health, because I brought up that, hey, I do a podcast around mental health and stuff. And he was talking to me about it. He goes, yeah, I still find it really difficult to go see a psychologist about what's going on, just because it's like, I guess the steps that are involved as well. And then also, I guess the stigma around it, he was explaining.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's those steps to go see a GP and then go. And I think also it's you don't know what to expect. A lot of the times when I was talking to my friends about it, they go, well, what happens when I get there? Like they feel like they have to have something ready to go. And it's just about trusting the person, the psychologist. That's what they're studied to do. They know what to do. Just let whatever happens.
Yeah.
But it's that thing. It's just like getting to those steps to go is 100% terrifying. I found it very terrifying. But if we can find a way to kind of make it easier to normalize it and just be like, no, it's fine. It's just like going to the doctor. And it is just like going to the doctor. You do a physical check, you do a mental health check. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because like what's going on up here affects everything else physically as well,
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
emotionally. I guess like one question would be, what's some of the ways you think will help to, I guess, get rid of the stigma around it?
I think I would say, kind of going back to what I was saying about just talking really casually about, therapy and psychology. Because I think when you like, even the first time I brought up, because I didn't tell anyone for a very long time that I was seeing a psychologist. And it was because of those reasons that I felt like, oh, they're going to think something's really wrong with me, like that I'm crazy and all those kind of typical things that we think. And so I think just bringing it up in a really casual manner, just saying, oh yeah, I saw my psychologist last week, and not having it have that kind of, stigma there of like, oh, why is she seeing a psychologist? What's going on? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I think just, talking about it more, just talking about, because I think I don't know exactly what the statistic is, but I'm sure it's pretty high of how many people actually go see psychologists, especially nowadays. Like, I think now the wait times for psychologists are like 6 months from what I can see, from some of my clients as well. So just bringing it up, just talking about it, just like, oh yeah, I saw my psychologist last week. We spoke about it, or you don't even say what you spoke about, but just like so casually. And I try and just bring it up, and I also try and explain to people what the benefits are of seeing a psychologist. So one thing that I really think is, like I said before, is it's in a controlled environment, because sometimes we have a tendency to, when something's bothering us, we have anxiety, we have depression, whatever it is, we tend to talk about it with a friend. But the problem is, a friend, no matter how much they want to help us and be there for us, they can't go that next step to help us. Just like, if you had a cold, you're not going to go to your friend for treatment. They don't know what to do. If you have a severe anxiety, this is what psychologists train for. This is what counselors train for. This is what coaches train for. They know how to deal with it. And they can stop you from going into that almost like oversharing mode as well, of constantly just talking about the problem, but not resolving the problem. That's what we do with our friends. With psychologists, they'll take those steps for you to rectify that problem, to actually make, proper steps to, getting through whatever it is you're going through. So, it's looking at it as if you're going to a doctor, like I said before, like just going to a doctor for a physical check, it's the same thing. And you're going to see someone who's got the training to help you do it. Our friends don't have that training. And also it's not their responsibility to handle all of that as well. They can help us and they should be there for us and we should be there for them. But there is a point where they can't help us, and we need to seek that help for ourselves. So I think trying to, tell people more about those benefits of, seeking help is really important, what you're going to get out of it. And also that's a very empowering thing to go see someone, empowering to say, no, I'm not doing well. I'm going to go see someone, because this is your life at the end of the day. Is this life you want to live, hiding and, being afraid to speak to people? You have to make that choice, and it's an empowering choice. I feel very empowered now to say that I've gone to therapy. I've done so many things because I'm making the choice to better my life. That's not a weakness by any means. So yeah, I think that just talking about it more, and just like, us who are in this world and we're quite comfortable to talk about it, just continually sharing that message of, even the strongest people suffer greatly as well, but they're strong because they show it, not because they hide it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like that vulnerability of saying, hey, like putting your hand up. And then also,
Yeah.
I guess like also like giving yourself the promise that you're going to go get help as well builds confidence in
Definitely.
yourself. So, and then also like going to see a psychologist as well, as you're talking about with friends, and that they can give you that plan to take the steps out of what's happening. As I guess sometimes with friends that I've noticed as well, it's like, you don't necessarily get the plan out of it. It's like they kind of justify where you're at, or kind of,
Exactly.
poke the stick at the fire kind of thing.
Exactly.
Mm.
Definitely. I agree. I think it's there's only so much that they can do to help you, and like you said, they can justify it, or they might not even know what to say, and that's totally okay as well. It's something you can't have an answer for, especially if it comes to like things that are involved with severe depression, severe anxiety, or any kind of mental health or mental illness concern. They can't help you, and it's like I said before, it's not their responsibility to help you. So you have to make that decision to get the help that you need, so that it's empowering. So you're not relying so much on other people to get you there. It's like, I can do it. I can help myself. That's so, so important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. I guess it'll be a bit off, like a bit on topic. We're talking about friends and stuff. So what's some of the conversations you can have with, I guess, with your friends, and that this is for like viewers, and that if you do see a friend that's struggling with mental health, what kind of stuff you can offer to, I guess, show a bit of sign of encouragement, but not over pushing in the same sense as well?
Yeah. So I actually did a post a couple of months ago, and I spoke about how you can help someone without actually asking them if they're okay. And basically, it's just that, when we talk about mental health, we talk a lot about, asking the question, are you okay? And talking, which is so, so important. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes that doesn't come easy to people, and we have to find other avenues to get them to share, or just to know that they're not alone. And so what I spoke about in that post was, you could do something for them. You can, grab a coffee with them. You don't have to ask them anything. Just like, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? Let's go for a walk. Sit and watch a movie with them. Make a meal for them. Help them do their laundry or things like that. Those tasks, they get a bit hard when we go into that, that kind of lump in mental health. So just showing that you're physically there, and, because I do think that as much as I advocate for, talking, and I'd like to say that I'm pretty good at asking that question, getting people to open up, I struggle still too. I struggle to say if I'm struggling to my friends. It's a hard conversation to be had. But I think that if you can begin those steps, and then, we can feel that with, a human, we can feel when someone's trying to, be there for us without actually actively saying, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? But they're saying it in their actions, so kind of speaking through your actions can, foster that safe environment where they might go then, oh, hey, I just want to talk about something. Can we talk about it? And then not also coming at it with such like, oh yes, like what's wrong, whatever, just being like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, what's wrong, let's just chat. But I think you can definitely do things that don't require talking, with like a lot of my clients that I work with. A lot of it doesn't actually require talking. It just requires like helping them do things which they really struggle with. It could be shopping, it could be cleaning, it could be whatever it may be. And that fosters safety and it creates trust. And then in their own time, they might go, oh, something's been bothering me. Can I talk to you about it? And they go, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, of course you can talk to me about it. So not putting so much pressure on the asking the question, if you're not good at it, start those steps. And that's so fine. Mental health is so much more than just talking. It's actually about physical actions as well, which is something that I've definitely learned over the course of this last year in the job that I do. I was so happy to focus on talking, and never realizing that sometimes talking isn't the right avenue for certain people. Sometimes it's actions. Actions then lead to conversation. So I think that's really important to remember that never underestimate the simplicity of a very passive act, such as going and grabbing coffee with someone. It really can. I mean, I'm sure you can think of a time where someone has just done something for you, really just might just think, oh, hey, do you want, can I grab you something to eat? And it's just changed your mindset, because you can feel that they want to do something for you, and it can just shift you out of that mindset. So never underestimate, the power of such a small act to get someone to open up or to help them.
I think that's so important, because as much as like talking and communication is important, it's also like as you're talking about, it's like the building, those actions that actually build trust in relationships. Because a lot of the time is, I guess, even as children, like a lot of people use words, or with our parents, or they don't follow through, or teachers, or the rest of it. So then it creates, I guess, this stigma with when you become an adult. It's like, okay, people don't follow through with their words. So if someone's talking to me about something, it means I can't trust them. And then you have to wait for their actions to actually start stepping in.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I saw one of your posts, and I think this was like a really cool post, was And this is something that's got me thinking about because it's something I've been recently going through as well. It's as you're talking about healthcare workers and empathetic burnout, which I think I would like to spread some awareness about this because I've had conversations with clients in my own job about this, and I didn't realize how big of a thing it was, especially in our healthcare industry.
Definitely. I think that, you know, in my line of work and in healthcare work, it requires a lot of empathy. It requires a lot of compassion. And sometimes, you go above and beyond and it still isn't enough. There's still something missing. And we're human and there's only so much that, you can give or take before you just burn out. And it's really interesting because I was researching a lot about it because there was a point where I was feeling very, very apathetic, just very not motivated. Like I was helping my clients, but I didn't really feel any kind of, as terrible as it sounds, I didn't feel any empathy. And it's because my empathy had just run out. I had nothing left to give. And so I just went into a very robotic state of just, doing what I need to do, doing the job. And I think why I spoke about that in that post was because I think it's extremely common, and probably not just in the healthcare sector, and just in general. I can't imagine we're human. We don't have an endless reservoir of empathy. You know what I mean? We try, we want to be, but we just don't. And so I think talking about it, because I think, at least for me, I would think, oh my God, I'm such a terrible person because I'm not being empathetic. I don't feel anything right now. And just like say one of my clients is telling me something distressing. I just feel nothing. I didn't feel any kind of, sympathy or compassion towards them. And again, I know that sounds really bad, but it's just, I felt numb. I felt numb to whatever they were telling me. And I think it's almost like a protective thing of, my mind was protecting me by being, no, just, you're not going to feel anything because you can't handle feeling anything right now. So I think talking about it, I'm not really sure what the solution is. I mean, I think it's like obviously proper self-care and, having really strong boundaries, which is really important. But I think also just talking about it and having no shame around it. Because again, I think that when someone hears that, they go, oh, but that's your job. Like, how can you, whatever it is, like if you're in the healthcare sector, like how can you feel that way? But it's such a normal response.
Sorry to cut you off there, but
No.
that is something that is super common that I hear about as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's their job. They're, you signed up for this and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, they're human beings too. They do burn out over time, and especially after you're doing the same thing over and over again, which I'm probably going to butcher the word. It's called hedonic adaptation. It's when I guess the same neural pathways keep talking to each other. So then you stop getting all the chemical rushes from it as well.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I think it's just, you just get into it like a repetitive state and, nothing really, you just feel numb to everything. You don't really feel any kind of, you just feel nothing. I think that's like kind of like the best way to describe it. And I think, like I said, I think within the healthcare worker system, there needs to be either more, conversation about it, better, self-care provided, better boundaries, whatever it may be. But also, it's not, I think in the movies we see all this, people who are in the healthcare sector, they just like, they love help. They just give endlessly, you know what I mean? And they'll do anything. And that's not really how it works. It's not the case. We do want to help, but we're not like, oh my God, like, I'm going to just burn myself to the ground trying to help someone, even though I have nothing left to give. It's not like that. And I think that there is that, I mean, with mental health and mental illness, the movies and TV shows don't do a good job of, giving a good representative of what it is actually like. So I would say in the same token, it goes for healthcare as well, is that, you see these TV shows about, doctors and everything like that, like, oh, I just want to help and they'll do whatever it takes. And they seem to never burn out. They always have endless compassion. That's just not the case. Like, we're human. We just can't do it. Like, as much as we want to, there comes a point where our mind will just go into protection mode and go, no, you can't handle any more of this. You got to stop and you have to disassociate now from what's going on. Otherwise, you're just going to completely burn out. So yeah, I think that was kind of, I mean, like I said, with that post, I wasn't kind of trying to, I didn't really have a solution at the time. I just wanted to share how I was feeling. Just, this is how I feel about the situation, and to say that it's okay if you are, you work in this field, that it's okay that you feel like that. You feel apathy, I think it's a very normal thing to feel.
And I think that post was very important as well to post out because there's no awareness around it. Like I was talking to an ex-paramedic, and the reason why he had to leave his job because he had, he burnt out. He had ended up getting, depressed and all this kind of stuff. And I was talking to him
Yeah.
about it, and he goes, "Yeah, there's no support for us in there for when we go through those states. We have to kind of, I guess, go seek it for ourselves." And when you're in that kind of, I guess, field of like, especially a paramedic, is that, you're doing shift work, you're tired all the time and all this kind of stuff. So then that's kind of your last thought on your head, is to go reach out for help. So, and one
Yeah.
thing he was talking about is like also creating, I guess, support networks in the healthcare industry as well, which I think is probably the most important thing we can do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on that point of like paramedics as well, I think, they'll probably experience a lot of vicarious trauma, which is like when you take on the trauma of other people, and you start to become traumatized by whatever it is you're seeing or whatever it is you're dealing with. And like you said, I think there needs to be more of that support. And I'm very saddened to hear that there isn't that support, because what they have to deal with and what they have to see, you would think there would be a better support system there for them to handle that, because it's traumatizing. Not even, I mean, yeah, within paramedics, the police force, whatever it is, in day-to-day life, like what people see, like, why is there not this like support system there for people to feel like they can express how they're feeling? Because I think it's not spoken enough about. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. I guess like my other question is too, what is some of like the early warning signs that you can see yourself before, I guess, you have this empathetic burnout or you do hit that numbers? What are some of the signs that you see or seen in your, I guess, yourself or other people and so forth?
Yeah, I think for me, when I start to feel that empathetic burnout kick in, I start to disassociate a lot, which is something like if I'm with my clients and they're talking to me, and I kind of, if there's something emotional going on, I tend to disassociate from that. So I'm not really feeling what they're feeling. And it kind of goes back to that, not feeling that empathy. Like I just don't feel that. Just feeling tired in general, just feeling like really exhausted, really fatigued, and just like zoning out, like almost like brain fog. Like I get a lot of brain fog because I just can't like, I just don't have the capacity to be able to handle whatever it is that they're telling me. And I think those are the telltale signs of when I'm starting to go into that empathetic burnout, of when I'm just, my brain, I've got nothing, like it's fried. I've just got nothing left to give, So I think those, for me, it's definitely those kind of things like brain fog and disassociation tends to happen when I start to burn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very good ones. And that's like, including myself as well. I do notice myself, I go through that, like, I guess in my job and all that, because of working with people, you do have to be quite empathetic all the time. And you
Yeah.
do know, and those are some of the signs that I notice, that I start disconnecting straight away through conversations, or I
Yeah.
guess you start daydreaming off is one of the signs that I've noticed.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And you start to almost you put on a character. I think it's that as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's exhausting because you kind of go into like, I have to go into a character now, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of to get through it. And that's exhausting in itself. Like I'm sure it's the same for you. Just kind of go, all right, I have to, switch on, and I have to like appear a certain way so I don't look tired, I don't look stressed out.
Mm-hmm. And then it's weird too, because people can pick it up real quick as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they can definitely pick it up. That can be a bit like when they're like, oh, are you okay? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good.
just like pass it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of
It's like,
thing.
I'm just out for a second. Don't worry. I'm back
Yeah,
now.
yeah, definitely. I might wrap it up on this question. I guess it's like, what's kind of three insights you would share, I guess, around um around mental health, just general mental health, that you would like
Uh,
to share.
yeah, let me think. Three insights. Um, One I would say is, sorry, now I've actually just got into a brain fog, so I'm trying to think. Three insights that I think that one thing I would say, one really big insight I think that is really important to talk about more is the distinction between mental health and mental illness. I know obviously that's a big topic of conversation, but I think working in this job, one insight that I will say is that I think that there needs to be more discussion on how we talk about mental health and how we talk about mental illness, because they are in the same category, but they are so different. They are not even in the same realm as like, you know, how we treat them and how we go about them and what we know about them, you know. And I think at the moment, from what I've noticed at least, and, you know, I could be wrong about this, but this is just how I see, I think, working with people who are mentally ill, we're starting to conflate mental health and mental illness together when they're not really the same. Well, they're not the same thing. And we need to be very careful in terms of like, kind of, I would say, you know, classifying someone as mentally ill when they're not. I think that's really dangerous. I think there's some rhetoric where, you know, when it comes to, say, anxiety, depression, that can overlap together, you know, that's mental health and mental illness. But we have to be very careful when we're talking about, you know, if it's like an anxiety disorder that's affecting, you know, someone's, you know, long-term, you know, mental health, mentality, or if it's just like something that's causing them anxiety or causing them depression, a situational factor. So that's one insight I would say that is really important, is that, you know, mental health and mental illness are not the same thing at all. And we should never put them in the same kind of category. I think it's really important. And I think more discussion needs to be had about that. Number 2, I would say never be afraid to ask the question, you know, if someone's okay. Never be afraid to ask that question. I think something that people are afraid of is they're crossing a boundary. If they ask that question, they're like, oh, I don't want to, you know, make them feel a certain way, whatever. And I always say, you know, you're never crossing a boundary when it comes to someone's mental health and potentially their life. You know, it's really important. You know, again, that's a really big discussion. It's a really deep and important discussion, but never be afraid to ask that question. It's so important. You never know what someone's kind of thinking in their minds. Number 3, I think a really big insight, something that I'm still learning. I think it's really important when it comes to just in general about how we look at people and how we treat mental health and everything like that. You never know what someone's going through. You really never know what someone's going through. And this is a really big thing that I was actually discussing with one of my clients who's been telling me about an issue they've been having about a friend that's, just as an example, is a friend that's, you know, been non-responsive with them, and they believe this friend is like not wanting to speak with them or whatever it may be. And, you know, I put it to them like, what if something's wrong with them? What if something's happened to them? What if they're going through something? And I think it's really important to always remember, you really, really, really don't know what someone's going through. You don't know what's going through someone's head. Never make assumptions about anything or anybody. Assumptions are just projections of what we think. And I think that's really, really important, because there's so many times where I've made that error of assuming something and I was totally wrong about the situation. So in terms of that, you know, because I think we do live in a world, especially with social media, we assume things about people. We think, oh, this is what they think about us. This is what we think about them, blah, blah. We make so many assumptions. Never make an assumption about anybody, and never compare yourself to anybody, because you just really got no clue, you know, and you never bet your life on it that you know what they're thinking. You know, if someone asked you like, well, would you bet your life that you know this is what they're thinking? You would probably say no, because you can't. You really don't know. So I think that's really important. Keep that perspective. It's really, really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and all 3 of them, especially, yeah, with that last one. It's like no one knows. It's like there's I think it's a little quote that's going around on Instagram at the moment. It's like, shows you, it's like this little circle and then there's a big circle, and it's like the little circle's like, this is how much you actually know about what someone's going through or their life, for example.
100%. It's something that's really like, you know, something that I work on a lot, but I think it just really, I think, I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with Jordan Peterson. I think we spoke about him on, like, we've DM'd like on Instagram. Like, he talks a lot about that. And he talks a lot about, you know, you're comparing yourself to someone who's like, appears like they've got everything, but you don't know that they're thinking about, you know, ramming their car into the next tree that they see. You know, you just don't know. And it's really important. And it's also, it's unproductive, because again, you're actually comparing to your own projection. Like you're comparing to your own viewpoint, vantage point of life. You have no idea what's going on. And so I think that's a really important thing, to have that awareness, to know that, you know, yeah, you just don't know. You really don't know. And if you don't know, don't make assumptions, don't do anything. Just, you know, like, yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
More than
This is
welcome.
great.
All right, cheers for tuning in today's podcast today, guys. Give it a like, comment, let us know what you think and all that jazz. Also, too, if you think it will value a friend, feel free to share it with them. What else too? If you want to support the podcast that little extra bit, feel free to head over to my website at www.mitchellcrocker.com to purchase a t-shirt, or head over to Patreon, which I'll link that down and below. And if there's any way that I can support you guys at all, feel free to send me a DM and any of my social media sites, or head over to mitchellcrocker.com for all my services and programs and all that kind of stuff. You need that extra support and all that. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in to today's podcast today, guys. Couldn't do this without you. But yeah, so peace.